Tom stood in the county courthouse with his shoulders square and his chin lifted. The room felt cold even though it was not winter. The benches were full of strangers who spoke in whispers and avoided eye contact. A few reporters sat near the back with notebooks open and quiet focus. Tom had been in public places before, but this place carried a different kind of pressure. He wore a simple brown jacket that looked older than most people in the room. On his chest sat a single medal with a faded ribbon, cleaned carefully as if it was a promise. Tom was not there to boast or to perform for anyone. He had worn the medal on days of remembrance and on events meant to honor service. That morning he had pinned it on because he believed it was the right thing to do. He had attended a town meeting the week before, trying to calm a loud argument about a planned construction project near a memorial park. People had shouted at each other and blamed each other, and Tom had stepped forward and asked them to lower their voices. He had said the park mattered, not because of politics, but because names were carved there, and those names once belonged to people who laughed and dreamed. He had expected the crowd to listen for a moment, and they did. Now he was in court, and he still did not fully understand how that moment had turned into a legal complaint. His lawyer, a patient man named Ben, had tried to explain it in simple terms. Ben said the complaint was about the medal, not the meeting. Ben said someone accused Tom of wearing it in a way that could be seen as misleading. Ben said certain rules existed to protect military honors from false claims. Tom understood the idea, and he agreed that lies should not be rewarded. Tom also knew the medal was real. Tom knew where it came from and why it had been given. When the judge entered, everyone rose. The judge was a man named Dean with a firm face and careful movements. His robe looked heavy, and his expression looked practiced. He sat and nodded, and the room sat with him. The clerk read the case name and the basic complaint in a flat voice. The words sounded official, but the meaning felt strange. It sounded like Tom was accused of stealing a symbol, when in his mind he had only carried his own history. Ben spoke first, calm and respectful. He said Tom was a decorated veteran and a long-time resident of the county. He said Tom had never claimed a rank he did not earn. He said Tom had never asked for money or special treatment. He said the medal was worn as a personal reminder and as a sign of respect for those who did not come home. Ben offered copies of discharge paperwork and a letter from a veterans group that had known Tom for years. The judge glanced at the papers, then set them aside. The opposing lawyer was a sharp woman named Sarah. She did not raise her voice, but her words carried a cutting edge. She said the law did not care about feelings. She said the law cared about context and public perception. She said a medal could be used to influence people even if the wearer believed he was being honest. She said Tom had stood in front of a crowd during a heated dispute and had worn a medal while speaking. She said that act could be seen as an attempt to add authority to his opinion. She said the court had to discourage that. Tom listened without changing his face. He watched the judge, not the lawyers. He watched Dean's eyes move from one person to the next like a clock hand. He noticed how quickly the judge looked away from him. He noticed how the judge treated the medal like a problem to solve, not a story to understand. Dean finally spoke in a calm voice that sounded polite and distant. He said the court was not judging Tom's life. He said the court was not rewriting history. He said the court's job was to enforce a specific rule about how military decorations could be displayed in certain contested public settings. He said the rule was designed to prevent confusion and protect honor. Then he looked down at the medal on Tom's chest, and he issued an order that landed like a stone. Dean ordered Tom to remove the medal in the courtroom and not wear it in similar settings while the complaint remained active. The room shifted with small sounds of surprise. A man coughed. A chair creaked. A reporter's pen paused in midair. Tom's body stayed still for a moment. He felt heat rise behind his eyes, but he did not let it show. He had trained himself long ago to keep steady under pressure. He could handle shouting crowds and bad weather and long nights. He had also learned that public humiliation had its own sting. Ben leaned toward him and whispered that they could appeal later. Ben said it was better to comply in the moment and fight it through paperwork. Ben said the judge had the power to hold Tom in contempt if he refused. Ben said they needed to stay focused and calm. Tom took a slow breath. His fingers moved to the clasp behind the ribbon. The metal came off with a small metallic click. The sound was not loud, but it felt louder than any voice in the room. Tom placed the metal in his palm like it was fragile. He looked down at it for a brief second, and his mind pulled up memories he did not invite. He remembered a friend named Mark who used to joke during late shifts. He remembered a quiet medic named Mia who always carried extra water. He remembered the day he received the medal and how it did not feel like a prize. He remembered how it felt like a weight, because it meant something had happened that could never be undone. Tom placed the medal on the table with care. He did not slam it. He did not throw it. He set it down as if he was setting down a name. Dean nodded once and moved on, acting as if the moment was only a procedural step. The clerk wrote something down. Sarah gathered her papers with a small, satisfied look. Ben kept his eyes on the judge, hoping to find an opening to soften the ruling. The room began to fill with quiet murmurs, as if people had been waiting for permission to react. As the hearing ended, Tom stood to leave. The bailiff opened the side door, and people began to file out. Tom reached for his medal, slipped it into his jacket pocket, and walked slowly toward the exit. He kept his face neutral, but his stomach felt tight. He was not thinking about pride. He was thinking about how quickly a symbol could be turned into a weapon. Outside, the courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. Cameras were raised. Microphones pushed forward. Tom stopped at the top step for a moment. A reporter asked if the medal was real. Another asked if he felt embarrassed. Another asked if he had tried to use his status to control the town meeting. Tom looked at them with tired eyes. He said the medal was real. He said he never tried to control anyone. He said he only asked people to calm down and treat each other with respect. He said honor was not something you borrow from a ribbon. He said honor was what you do when no one is watching. That line was recorded, shared, and shortened by strangers within hours. A secret clip from inside the courtroom appeared online, showing only the moment Tom removed the medal. The clip had no context and no documents and no explanation. The caption under it was harsh and misleading. People who never met Tom began to decide who he was. By evening, the clip was spreading across local pages and community groups. Some people defended him and said the judge had gone too far. Others attacked him and said he must have done something wrong to be ordered like that. A few accounts posted angry comments and demanded punishment. A few accounts claimed the medal was fake, even though they had no proof. Tom drove home in silence. His small house sat on a quiet street with a worn fence and a short driveway. He parked, walked inside, and placed the medal on his kitchen table. He stared at it for a long time. He did not cry. He did not shout. He simply sat and listened to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a neighbor's dog. He did not know yet that the judge's order had started a chain reaction. He did not know that one reporter was already digging into Dean's past rulings. He did not know that Sarah had her own reasons for pushing the case so hard. He did not know that a single mistake in the paperwork could turn the story upside down. Tom only knew one thing as the night grew darker. He had followed rules his whole life, and he had paid costs without asking for rewards. If someone wanted to take away his truth, they would have to face the truth that was written in records, in witnesses, and in the quiet dignity of a life lived honestly. The next morning the town woke up to a new argument that felt bigger than the construction meeting. The short courtroom clip had spread across phones and laptops overnight. People shared it with captions that made it sound like Tom had done something shameful. Some posts called him a hero who was treated unfairly. Some posts called him a liar without any proof. Tom did not know any of this when he stepped outside to get the mail. He wore a plain shirt and old jeans and moved slowly, like his joints needed time to warm up. He saw two neighbors across the street looking at him, then looking away. He felt the change in the air even before anyone spoke. He took the envelopes from the box and walked back inside. Ben called him soon after breakfast. Ben sounded tired but focused, and he said the situation was getting loud online. Ben said they needed to respond carefully and only with facts. Ben said they would file for a review of the judge order. Ben said he also wanted copies of every document Tom had from his service time. Tom told him he had a folder in a metal box and he would bring it. Tom drove to Ben's office around midday. The parking lot was full, not because of regular clients, but because reporters had learned where Ben worked. A small group stood near the entrance, waiting. Tom kept his head down and walked in without stopping. A man called out his name, but Tom did not turn. Inside, Ben closed the door and sighed. Ben said the judge order was unusual because it happened so fast and without proper review of the evidence. Ben said they could challenge it, but the bigger problem was the public story that was now being built. Ben said people were making a decision about Tom without hearing the full record. Tom nodded and placed his metal box on the table. Ben opened the box and spread papers out in neat stacks. There were service records, training notes, and a letter that confirmed the award. There was also a worn photo of Tom with a small group of friends, all smiling under harsh sun. Ben looked at the documents and said the medal was clearly legitimate. Ben said the complaint should have ended there, but someone wanted more than a simple rule check. Ben then told Tom something that made his jaw tighten. Ben said Sarah had been sending statements to the press. Ben said she was framing the case as a stand against misuse of symbols. Ben said she was using strong language without directly accusing Tom of anything criminal. Ben said the result was that Tom looked guilty in the minds of strangers. Tom asked Ben why Sarah cared so much. Ben said he did not know yet, but he planned to find out. Ben said the judge also seemed too confident in the ruling, as if he had already made up his mind before hearing the documents. Ben said the speed of the order was the clue. That afternoon, a local radio show talked about the clip for almost an hour. The host said it was about protecting honor and stopping false claims. A caller said the judge did the right thing. Another caller said the court had humiliated an elderly veteran for no reason. The host ended the segment by saying more information might come soon. Tom sat at home and listened without speaking. He did not enjoy hearing his life turned into entertainment. He felt like he was being pulled into a storm that did not belong to him. He wanted to go back to quiet days and small routines. He wanted to fix the loose hinge on his front gate and water the plants and forget the courthouse. A knock came at his door near evening. Tom opened it and found a young woman named Lena holding a folder. Lena introduced herself as a reporter from a small local paper. She did not push a camera in his face. She did not raise her voice. She asked if she could speak for a few minutes. Tom hesitated, then let her stand on the porch while he stayed near the doorway. Lena said she watched the courtroom hearing and felt something was missing from the story. Lena said the clip online did not match the documents she had requested. Lena said the clerk office had delayed her request in a strange way. Lena said she wanted to know Tom's side. Tom told Lena he had nothing to hide. Tom said he wore the medal because it reminded him to be humble and to honor people who never got to live a long life. Tom said he never used it to threaten anyone or to gain money. Tom said he only asked the town meeting to calm down and remember the park was about real human beings. Lena listened carefully and wrote notes with slow, steady hands. Before Lena left, she asked Tom one specific question. She asked if Tom had ever met Judge Dean before the courthouse day. Tom said he had seen Dean once years ago at a ceremony, but they never spoke. Lena nodded, like that answer mattered. Later that night, Ben called again. Ben said he found something unusual in the written order. Ben said the order referenced a guideline that did not apply to the type of hearing they had. Ben said it looked like someone copied text from another case. Ben said mistakes like that could happen, but this mistake pointed to haste. Ben also said he learned Sarah had recently applied for a new position in the county, one that would raise her profile. Ben said high-profile cases often helped people climb. Ben said Tom might have been turned into a symbol for someone else's ambition. Tom felt a cold frustration, not loud anger, but a steady burn. The next morning Lena published a short article online. She did not accuse anyone directly. She simply reported that Tom's service documents confirmed the medal. She wrote that the judge order was being appealed. She wrote that the public clip lacked context. Her tone was calm, and that calm made the story shift. People began to ask new questions. If the medal was real, why was Tom ordered to remove it? If the law was about stopping false claims, why did the court not verify the claim first? If the judge wanted to protect honor, why did the ruling look careless? By midday, a larger news station picked up Lena's article. They requested an interview with Ben. Ben agreed and spoke only about the documents and the appeal. He did not insult the judge. He did not attack Sarah. He simply laid out facts in simple order. Tom watched the interview from his living room. He saw the anchor listen with a serious expression. He saw the screen show a blurred copy of the service letter. He saw the caption that said verified award record. The weight in his chest eased a little. Still, the story was not over. As the public started to turn, Judge Dean's office released a short statement defending the order. Sarah posted a message saying she stood for integrity. The lines were being drawn, and Tom was still standing in the middle of them. That night Ben sent Tom one final text. Ben said he had requested the audio record of the hearing. Ben said he suspected something was said off the record before the session began. Ben said if that audio existed, it could change everything. Tom looked at his medal on the table and realized the fight was no longer just about a ribbon. It was about who controlled the truth. Ben drove to the courthouse early the next morning with a folder full of requests and a calm face that hid his worry. He had learned that when a case turned public, the paperwork became a battlefield. He also knew the truth lived inside records that most people never bothered to read. He parked, walked in, and asked for the official audio of the hearing. He asked for the clerk log, the filing timeline, and the source document the judge used for the order. The clerk at the window was a quiet man named Roy who looked uncomfortable the moment Ben said the case number. Roy did not refuse, but his hands moved slowly as he searched the computer. Ben watched Roy's eyes, not the screen. Roy looked toward the hallway more than once, as if someone might appear. Ben kept his voice gentle and asked if there was a problem with the request. Roy said the audio should exist, but it was marked for internal review. Roy said that was not common for small hearings. Ben asked who marked it. Roy hesitated, then said it was flagged by the court administrator. Ben thanked him and asked for the name of the administrator. Roy gave the name and quickly looked away. Ben left the window and stood near a bench, thinking through the next move. He understood what internal review often meant in practice. It meant delay, and delay protected someone. Ben called Lena and asked her to meet him near the courthouse cafe. Lena arrived with her notebook and a serious expression that showed she was not chasing drama. Ben told her the audio was being held back and the case was being treated like something sensitive. Lena wrote it down and said she would ask for the same records using her press request. While Ben worked inside the courthouse, Tom stayed home and tried to keep his routine steady. He cleaned the kitchen and watered the plants near the window. He watched cars pass his street and noticed more slowdown than usual. He did not like the feeling of being watched. He kept the medal in a small wooden box now, not because he felt shame, but because he wanted it safe from the noise of the world. A knock came near noon, and Tom opened the door to find a man with a camera and a bright smile. The man introduced himself as Rick and said he ran a popular local channel. Rick said he wanted Tom to speak on camera and tell the public how unfair the judge had been. Tom listened without interrupting. Tom then said he would not perform anger for an audience. Tom said he would speak when facts were ready and not before. Rick frowned and tried again, but Tom repeated the same answer and closed the door gently. That afternoon Ben returned to his office and found a new message waiting in his inbox. It was from a veterans group leader named Sam who had heard about the case. Sam said the group had records of the ceremony when Tom received the medal. Sam said there were photos and a signed statement from the commanding officer who presented it. Ben thanked him and asked for copies. Ben knew that stacking proof mattered, even when proof should have been enough already. Lena spent the day calling sources and requesting documents. She spoke with town meeting organizers and asked about the night Tom stood in front of the crowd. Several people told her Tom had calmed things down and asked everyone to respect the memorial park. One woman said Tom's voice was steady and kind and not demanding. Another man said Tom did not mention his medal at all. Lena wrote these details down, because they filled the empty space the viral clip had created. Late in the evening, Lena got a quiet tip from someone who would not give their name. The tip said Judge Dean had been under pressure to look tough on public integrity cases. The tip said a county board member had complained about the town meeting and wanted a strong message to stop people from using symbols during heated debates. Lena could not print an anonymous claim without evidence, but she could use it as a map for where to dig. She called Ben and told him what she heard. Ben said it matched his feeling that the case was bigger than Tom. The next day, Ben filed an urgent motion to access the hearing audio and any related recordings from the courtroom entry area. He also requested the draft history of the written order. He argued that the court must show how the order was produced and whether any improper language was copied into it. The filing was technical, but the point was simple. Ben wanted sunlight on the process. Sarah responded quickly, and her response was sharp. She argued that the audio review was normal and that Ben was trying to create a scandal to pressure the court. She wrote that the law was not a popularity contest. She wrote that allowing veterans to wear medals in heated disputes could influence crowds unfairly. She wrote that intent did not matter as much as effect. Ben read the response and noticed what she did not say. She did not say the order was accurate. She did not say the guideline cited was correct. She only tried to close the door before anyone looked inside. Tom received another call from Ben that evening. Ben told him the case had taken a turn. Ben said the court administrator finally answered his email and agreed to release the audio under conditions. Ben said the file would be provided at the courthouse media room with a clerk present. Ben said that kind of controlled listening was unusual. Tom asked if that was good or bad. Ben said it meant they were nervous about what the audio contained. The following morning, Ben and Lena arrived at the media room at the same time. A clerk sat at a desk with a laptop and a neutral face. Ben signed a form, and the clerk played the recording. The audio began with the normal sounds of a courtroom settling. Then a short section played before the judge opened the public session. A voice that sounded like Judge Dean spoke quietly to someone near the bench. The words were clear enough to understand, and they made Lena grip her pen tighter. The judge voice said the county needed a firm example. The judge voice said this case would send a message and calm the town. Another voice answered, and it sounded like Sarah. Her voice said it would help the court look strong and help the county look serious. The judge voice then said they would keep it simple and order the medal removed in the room. Ben paused the audio and looked at the clerk. The clerk's face tightened, then relaxed as if he had expected this moment. Lena wrote quickly and did not speak. Ben asked if that part of the audio was logged as pre-session remarks. The clerk nodded and said it was in the file. Ben asked why it was flagged for internal review. The clerk did not answer and only repeated that he was instructed to oversee playback. Ben and Lena left the room and stood in the hallway for a long moment. The courthouse felt colder than before. Lena finally said the words sounded like planning and not like neutral judging. Ben agreed and said this could be the key. Ben said it suggested the ruling was shaped for appearance and not for fairness. By afternoon, Ben filed another motion, this time stronger, asking for review by a higher court and requesting that Judge Dean step aside from any further decisions in the case. Ben included a transcript of the audio section. He did not add emotion. He did not add insults. He simply attached the words and let them speak. When Sarah saw the motion, she called a press conference outside the courthouse. She said Ben was twisting harmless comments into a conspiracy. She said she would not be bullied. She said she still stood for integrity. But her eyes looked tense, and her voice moved too fast. Reporters noticed, because reporters could smell fear better than they admitted. Tom learned about the audio that night when Ben came to his house with copies of the filing. Tom listened as Ben played the short section again. Tom did not smile or celebrate. He simply closed his eyes for a moment, as if he was letting the truth settle into place. He opened his eyes and asked one quiet question about what would happen next. Ben said the next hearing could change careers, because the record now showed intent. Tom looked at the wooden box on his table and realized the metal had never been the real target. The real target had been control, and control was starting to slip. The courthouse looked different on the day of the review hearing, even though the walls were the same and the steps were the same. More people stood outside than before, and the crowd was quieter in a serious way. Some held small flags. Some held signs asking for fairness. Some held nothing and only watched as if they were waiting for a storm to choose a direction. Tom arrived early with Ben and walked through the side entrance to avoid noise. He wore the same brown jacket, but the medal was not on his chest. It stayed in the wooden box at home because Ben advised him not to give anyone an easy distraction. Tom did not like leaving it behind, but he understood the strategy. The case had grown beyond his personal feelings, and the focus had to stay on process and truth. Inside the courtroom, a new judge sat at the bench. Her name was Judge Hill, and her expression looked calm and direct. She did not waste time with long speeches. She began by stating the purpose of the hearing. She said they were there to review whether the earlier order was proper and whether the judge who issued it remained neutral. Her voice carried authority without drama. Sarah sat at her table with a neat stack of papers. Her posture was firm, but her fingers moved restlessly near her pen. Ben sat beside Tom with his notes and a simple plan. He would not argue with anger. He would let the record speak and let the new judge do her job. Judge Hill asked Ben to begin. Ben stood and introduced the key points in a clear order. He said Tom's service and award were verified. He said the original hearing moved too fast and ignored documents. He said the written order cited a guideline that did not match the hearing type. He said the audio recording included remarks that suggested the outcome was planned to send a message. He then requested the court to play the audio segment and include it in the official record. The room went still as the clerk played the sound. People listened with tight faces. When the voices reached the part about making an example, several heads turned slightly as if they wanted to confirm they heard it correctly. Sarah kept her eyes forward and did not blink much. Judge Hill listened without interruption. When the clip ended, she did not react in a dramatic way. She only asked a few precise questions. Judge Hill asked Sarah if she disputed the accuracy of the audio. Sarah said she did not dispute that the voices were real. She said the remarks were casual and did not affect the ruling. Judge Hill asked if Sarah had advised the judge to order the medal removed in the room. Sarah paused for a fraction of a second, then said her comments were about clarity and not punishment. Judge Hill asked if Sarah had ever communicated with Judge Dean about the case outside of official court communication. Sarah said she had not, then quickly added that she had only spoken in normal courthouse settings. Ben then presented the service letter and the Veterans Group statement and the ceremony photos. The judge did not need them to decide bias, but Ben offered them to show how simple the truth had been all along. Judge Hill looked at the documents and nodded. She said the verified record raised a serious question about why the original order happened before the evidence was properly weighed. The hearing continued for another hour with careful back and forth. Ben stayed calm and focused. Sarah tried to defend her actions with legal language, but the tone kept slipping into personal defense. She spoke about public trust and symbols and perception. Judge Hill listened, then asked if public perception was a reason to ignore evidence. Sarah said no, but her answer sounded less confident than before. When the arguments ended, Judge Hill leaned forward slightly. She said the court takes neutrality seriously. She said judges cannot use a person as a message board. She said lawyers cannot encourage outcomes designed for publicity. She said the audio remarks raised an appearance of bias that could not be ignored. She said the earlier order was vacated, which meant it no longer stood. She said Tom was not under any court restriction regarding his medal from that prior order. A quiet wave of relief moved through the room. Tom did not celebrate. He only breathed out slowly, like he had been holding air for days without noticing. Judge Hill then addressed a second issue. She said she would refer the matter of Judge Dean conduct for further review by the appropriate oversight body. She did not say what punishment would follow. She only said the process would continue. She also said the conduct of counsel may be reviewed if there was evidence of improper coordination. Sarah's face tightened, and her jaw set hard. Outside, reporters flooded the steps. Ben spoke briefly and said the court corrected a mistake. He said Tom was never on trial for dishonor. He said the record mattered more than a viral clip. He refused to insult anyone and refused to feed the fire. That restraint made his words feel stronger. Tom stepped forward after Ben and spoke in a quiet voice. He said he did not want revenge. He said he wanted fairness for everyone, not just for himself. He said a medal was not a tool to win arguments. He said it was a reminder to live with responsibility and respect. He said he hoped the town could return to calm and care for the memorial park together. The story did not end at the courthouse steps. It moved fast through the county offices. Within days, a formal notice appeared that Judge Dean would be temporarily removed from certain duties during review. The notice did not explain every detail, but it confirmed that something serious was being examined. Sarah's position also began to shake. Her application for the higher county role was paused while committees asked questions about her judgment. People who once supported her started to distance themselves. The career damage did not come from one loud accusation. It came from the record that showed planning and appearance management. It came from the moment she chose ambition over fairness. It came from the way she tried to turn a human being into a symbol. Meanwhile, Tom's life began to settle back into quieter patterns. Neighbors who avoided him started to greet him again. A few brought small gifts like homemade bread and tea. Some apologized with awkward words. Tom accepted the kindness without holding a grudge. He understood how quickly people could be pushed by half a story. One afternoon Lena visited Tom with a printed copy of her latest article. The headline was simple and careful. It said the court vacated the order and the verified record supported Tom. The article explained the key facts and avoided exaggeration. Lena told Tom she learned something important from the case. She said truth needed patience, because lies traveled faster. Tom nodded and said patience was a kind of courage too. That evening Tom opened the wooden box and took out the medal. He held it for a moment in his palm. The metal felt cool, but the meaning felt warm. He pinned it onto his jacket and stood in front of a small mirror. He did not do it for pride. He did it because no court should force a person to hide a truthful part of their life for the sake of a message. The next town meeting at the memorial park was quiet and respectful. People spoke one at a time. They listened more. They argued less. Tom did not stand at the front. He sat among the crowd like anyone else. The medal rested on his chest, not as a weapon, but as a reminder that integrity was not a speech. Integrity was a choice made again and again, even when the world got loud.